Hey there. You're ready to tackle a question that's got everyone buzzing.
Yeah.
We're diving into the world of AI and its impact on the environment.
Oh,
You've probably seen the headlines, the promises, the warnings. Is AI a climate hero or a villain in disguise?
yeah.
Well, get ready to go beyond the hype because we're about to break it all down.
Right.
And let's be real, this isn't just about some abstract future. We're
Yeah.
talking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
From those smart assistants we chat with to the algorithms suggesting our next online purchase AI is already woven into our lives.
Yeah.
But at what cost to the planet? That's what we're here to figure out. Think about this. Training just one of those massive AI models like the ones behind the chatbots everyone's using
Mm.
can have the same carbon footprint as driving a car over 1,000,000 miles.
Wow.
That's a lot of trips to the grocery store.
Uh-huh.
But hold on, before you swear off technology forever,
Yeah.
our expert is here to help us navigate this complex landscape.
Okay.
They've been digging deep into the research you've provided, and trust
Uh-huh.
me, there are some surprising insights ahead.
You're absolutely right. There's a lot more to this story than meets the eye.
Okay.
It's not as simple as saying AI is good or bad for the environment. The truth is it's both.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating.
Okay. I'm intrigued. So where do we even begin to untangle this knot of technology and environmental impact?
Let's start with the basics.
Okay.
AI's carbon footprint can be broken down into three main areas:
Okay.
training, inference, and data center operations.
All right. Let's break down those three heads of the beast, as we like to call them.
Yeah.
First up, training.
Okay.
What's so energy intensive about teaching a computer new tricks?
Imagine you're trying to teach a child to recognize different types of birds.
Mm-hmm.
You'd show them countless pictures, point out distinguishing features, and correct their mistakes until they got it right.
Right.
Training an AI is similar, but on a massive scale.
Okay.
We're talking about feeding these models huge amounts of data requiring immense processing power and therefore a ton of energy.
So it's like sending an AI to boot camp. But instead of push-ups and obstacle courses, it's crunching data to those null 4-7. No wonder it guzzles energy. And I'm guessing that energy often comes from sources that aren't exactly eco-friendly.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
While there's a growing push towards renewable energy, many data centers still rely on electricity generated from fossil fuels, contributing to carbon emissions.
Okay, so we've established that training these AI behemoths takes a serious energy toll.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned something called inference.
Right.
What's that all about?
Inference is basically using an AI model that's already been trained.
Gotcha.
Every time you ask your smart speaker a question, run a Google search, or use a facial recognition app, you're engaging in inference. Each of these individual actions uses a small amount of energy.
So like a tiny sip from the energy straw, right?
Oh, isn't the problem that millions of us are taking those sips every single day?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the sheer scale of AI usage that amplifies the impact.
Think about it. A single search query might have a negligible footprint, but multiply that by millions of searches happening every minute, and it adds up quickly.
Okay, so the sips turn into a big gulp for the planet. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But let's not forget about the data centers themselves, the physical spaces where all this AI magic happens. What's their role in the environmental equation?
Data centers are the backbone of the AI world, housing rows upon rows of servers that work around the clock. These servers require a constant supply of electricity, not just for processing power, but also for cooling systems to prevent them from overheating.
Right. I've heard that some data centers use as much energy as a small town. It's like they have their own microclimate going on in there.
Uh-huh.
So we've got the training, the usage, and the data centers all contributing to this complex environmental puzzle. But I need some concrete numbers to wrap my head around this. Just how big is AI's carbon footprint really?
Well, research suggests that training a large language model, think the kind that powers those sophisticated chatbots,
Right.
can emit roughly 500 metric tons of CO2.
Okay, 500 metric tons.
Yeah.
That's a big number, but honestly, it doesn't mean much to me out of context. Can you put that into perspective?
Imagine 8 average U.S. households and their total electricity consumption for an entire year.
Okay.
That's the equivalent carbon footprint of training just one model.
Whoa, now that's something I can actually visualize.
Yeah.
It's like powering an entire neighborhood for a year.
Yeah.
And that's just from training one model. It really
Right.
puts things into perspective. So we're talking about a significant environmental impact,
Yeah.
especially when you consider how many AI models are being developed and used around the world. But you mentioned earlier that it's important to distinguish between AI's impact at a societal level versus the impact on an individual user. Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. On a societal level, AI's integration into practically everything,
Mhm.
from healthcare to transportation to finance,
Right.
definitely has a considerable carbon footprint. However, there's a flip side to this.
Here's where things get interesting.
Exactly. AI also has the potential to drive indirect emission reductions through optimizations.
For example, AI can be used to create smarter traffic systems to minimize congestion and wasted fuel, or even design more energy-efficient buildings.
So it's not a black and white situation. AI contributes to the problem, but it can also be part of the solution. It's all about how we choose to use it.
Yeah.
But let's bring it back down to earth for a second.
Okay.
You, the listener, are probably wondering, what does all of this mean for me?
Yeah.
Should I be feeling guilty about using AI in my daily life?
Honestly, your individual use of AI probably has a minimal impact on your overall carbon footprint.
Okay.
It's important to focus on the bigger picture and prioritize reducing emissions from areas where you have more control,
Yeah.
like transportation and energy consumption at home.
That makes sense. It's all about focusing on what we can control and making smart choices where it matters most.
Yeah.
But it still feels important to understand what a responsible carbon footprint looks like these days,
All right.
Do we even have a target to aim for? There is a target, actually. Scientists suggest aiming for a personal carbon footprint of around 2 metric tons of CO2 per year
Okay.
to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. That's the level needed to avoid the most serious effects of climate change.
Okay. 2 metric tons per year. Got it.
Mm.
And just out of curiosity, how does that compare to the average?
Well, the global average is about 4 metric tons per year,
Okay.
but in the U.S. it jumps to 16 tons.
Oh, wow.
So we've got some work to do.
No kidding. But let's circle back to AI. You mentioned it can be a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
What are some of the most compelling arguments against widespread AI adoption from an environmental perspective?
As we've discussed, the energy-intensive nature of AI,
Yep.
especially the training process, is a major concern. And some argue that many AI applications simply aren't worth the environmental cost.
Yeah.
Do we really need AI-powered toothbrushes or refrigerators that order groceries for us? Those might be fun gadgets, but they don't necessarily solve critical problems.
I hear you. It's like we don't need AI to tell us what to wear or what to eat for breakfast.
Mm.
Let's focus on using it for things that truly matter.
Precisely. And then there's the issue of rapid, potentially unchecked AI development without proper oversight.
Mhm.
If the growth of AI infrastructure outpaces our transition to renewable energy, it could lock us into even more carbon-intensive practices.
That's a scary thought. It's like we're building a high-speed train before we've even laid the tracks.
Uh-huh.
So there are definitely some valid concerns about AI's environmental impact.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned its potential to be part of the solution to climate change. Let's dig into that a bit further.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the most promising ways AI can actually help reduce emissions?
One exciting area is using AI to optimize energy use across various sectors.
Okay.
Think about smarter power grids that can distribute renewable energy more efficiently, or buildings that adjust their energy consumption based on real-time conditions.
So we can use AI to squeeze more efficiency out of the systems we already have, essentially doing more with less. I like the sound of that. What else?
AI is also a game changer for climate research and monitoring. Scientists can use AI models to analyze vast amounts of data to track deforestation, predict extreme weather events, or even discover new materials for carbon capture technologies.
It's like giving scientists a super-powered magnifying glass to understand and address the climate crisis.
Exactly. And don't underestimate AI's potential to substitute carbon-intensive activities.
Mm-hmm.
We're already seeing this with things like remote work and telemedicine, which are reducing the need for travel.
So instead of physically moving ourselves around, we can use AI to connect and collaborate virtually. That saves time, money, and carbon emissions. So win-win-win.
And one of the biggest advantages of AI is its scalability.
Okay.
Once a model is trained, it can be used by millions, even billions of people without a proportional increase in emissions.
That's huge. Yeah. Especially when you're trying to tackle a global challenge like climate change. We need solutions that can be deployed on a massive scale, and AI has that potential.
You get it. AI can help us move from incremental improvements to truly transformative change. But with all this talk about potential, let's be real. What are some of the things we need to do right now to ensure AI development is truly sustainable and beneficial?
It feels like we're at a crossroads.
Yeah.
We have this powerful technology with the potential to solve some of the world's biggest problems.
Uh-huh.
But it comes with its own environmental baggage.
Yeah.
So how do we make sure we're steering AI in the right direction?
One crucial step is being much more selective about where we apply AI.
Okay.
It's not a magic solution for every problem. We need to prioritize high-impact applications that offer clear societal or environmental benefits.
But it's not just about being cool or innovative.
Right.
It's about asking, does this AI application actually solve a meaningful problem, and is the benefit worth the environmental cost?
Exactly. We need to move away from flashy gimmicks and focus on using AI for good. And speaking of good, a big part of that is transitioning to a more sustainable infrastructure for AI.
Right, like making sure those data centers are powered by renewable energy and designed for maximum efficiency. We can't just focus on making the AI itself more efficient. We need to make the whole system more sustainable.
Absolutely. And we need to promote responsible AI development practices across the board.
Yeah.
That means encouraging developers to adopt techniques that minimize energy consumption,
Okay.
like designing more efficient algorithms and limiting how often they retrain massive models.
So instead of constantly starting from scratch, we need to find ways to build on existing models and make incremental improvements.
Yeah.
Less energy, more impact.
Yeah.
But let's face it, even with our best efforts, AI is still going to have some environmental impact.
Yeah.
What do we do about those unavoidable emissions?
That's where carbon offsetting comes in. We can invest in projects that remove carbon from the atmosphere,
Right.
like planting trees or supporting renewable energy projects to compensate for the emissions from AI development and use.
So like a balancing act.
Right.
We try to minimize the emissions from AI, and then we invest in projects to capture the carbon we couldn't avoid. Makes sense. But I have a feeling there's even more to this story, right? What about those hidden costs we hear so much about?
You're right.
Yeah.
We often overlook the emissions associated with the entire life cycle of AI, from manufacturing the hardware to disposing of e-waste.
It's like an iceberg, right?
Oh.
We see the energy used to train and run the AI, but there's this whole hidden mass of emissions lurking beneath the surface.
Exactly. Mining the raw materials, manufacturing the chips, assembling the servers, transporting them around the world.
Yeah.
All of these processes require energy and contribute to emissions. And then there's the issue of e-waste.
Right.
As AI hardware becomes obsolete, it often ends up in landfills where it can release harmful pollutants into the environment.
Okay, so it's clear that we need a more holistic view of AI's environmental impact.
Yeah.
It's not just about the energy used during operation, it's about the entire life cycle of these systems. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the long-term efficiency of AI.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that AI has a high upfront emission cost during training,
Right.
but lower emissions during usage. What are the implications of that?
Well, it means that AI is particularly well suited for applications that can be scaled massively,
Okay.
where the initial investment in training can be spread out over a huge number of users. Think of something like a medical diagnosis system that can be used by millions of patients worldwide.
So the upfront cost, while significant, becomes less impactful when you're talking about solutions that can benefit a large number of people. It's like investing in public transportation. It might require a big initial investment, but it pays off in the long run by reducing emissions from individual cars.
Exactly. And AI can also replace inefficient legacy processes, leading to substantial emissions reductions over time. For example, imagine using AI to optimize traffic flow in a city, reducing congestion and wasted fuel. Or using AI to develop more precise weather forecasts, enabling farmers to use water and fertilizer more efficiently.
So while there are legitimate concerns about the energy intensity of AI, especially during the training phase, it also has the potential to drive significant emissions reductions in the long run. It's all about using it strategically and focusing on applications that offer the greatest societal and environmental benefits. But AI's impact isn't limited to the environment, right? There are broader societal implications to consider as well.
Absolutely. AI has the potential to reshape our economies, our social structures, and even our relationship with technology itself.
Right.
And as with any powerful technology, there are risks as well as benefits. We need to be mindful of those risks and work to mitigate them while also maximizing AI's positive potential.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about how we as a society choose to develop and use it. It's about making sure that AI benefits everyone, not just a select few.
You've hit the nail on the head. And that brings us to some important questions we should all be asking ourselves as AI becomes more deeply integrated into our lives.
All right, hit me with those questions. I'm ready to do some serious thinking.
For starters, How do we ensure that the energy demands of AI don't disproportionately burden certain communities or countries? How do we prevent AI from exacerbating existing inequalities or creating new ones?
Those are big questions. It's about making sure that access to AI and its benefits is equitable and that the costs, both environmental and social, are distributed fairly.
Exactly. And then there's the question of who gets to decide how AI is developed and used. Do we leave it entirely to private companies, or do governments and civil society need to play a more active role in shaping AI's trajectory?
Right. It's about finding the right balance between innovation and regulation, between encouraging progress and protecting the public interest.
And ultimately, it all comes back to values.
Uh-huh.
What kind of world do we want to create with AI? What are our priorities? What are the ethical principles that should guide AI development and use?
It's not just about the technology itself, it's about what we as a society decide to do with it. It's about making conscious choices and using AI as a tool to build a better future for everyone.
Beautifully put. It's a complex conversation, but it's one we need to be having. The choices we make today will shape the future of AI and, in turn, the future of our planet and our society.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from the nuts and bolts of AI's carbon footprint to the broader societal and ethical considerations surrounding its development and use. We've explored the challenges and the opportunities, the risks and the rewards, but most importantly, we've hopefully sparked a conversation that will continue long after this episode ends. So, as you go about your day, keep thinking about AI, keep asking questions, and keep engaging in this important dialogue. Because the future of AI isn't preordained. It's being shaped right now by all of us. Thanks for joining us on this journey. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of ideas and innovation.